And if you have any questions, the next thing, if you have any questions, is at the bottom of your screen. There's a button called Chat. So if you're not exactly sure what to do, you can write your question in there. We'll try our best to be able to answer it as best as possible. If not, then we won't, but we'll at least message you back and let you know like what we would suggest you to be able to do. Now, while the meeting is happening, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to mute everybody except for the people who are speaking at that moment. And the reason we're going to do that is because there's going to be a lot of background noise for everybody. If there's people that are speaking that are not, and that includes people on the phone as well. So if there's some people who are using their laptops, their iPads, but there's some people who are dialing in. Right now, I don't see anybody dialing in, which is a good sign. But some people may dial in later on. And if you want to speak, I'm not sure if anybody has used Zoom before, but there's a raise hand button on the bottom. Does anybody see the raise hand button? Can people put up the click the button that says raise hand at the bottom? I see lots of people. Excellent. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Jonathan. Wow, we got a thumbs up from Aaron. Excellent. So the raise hand function is what we're going to use for our speakers list. So when we have your hand raised, then that's when John will know who wants to speak next and is going to be keeping a tab of whoever has raised their hand in order to make sure that this meeting is run with a bit of clarity and design. So is that okay? If you're on your iPhone or whatnot, it'll also show up similarly there as well. It'll just be on your bottom right-hand side. And that is what you would use in order to access that. I'm gonna make sure this thing turned off. Yeah. So if you're on a phone, there's a more button on your bottom right. You click on that more, a thing pops up. It says, chat, meeting settings, blah, 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 blah. And it says raise hand. That's where you would raise your hand in order to get on the speakers list. The next thing I want to go over is how to vote. Now, I'm going to show you how to vote. So throughout the meeting, there's going to be a number of motions where John's going to say, going to call this thing to question. It could be approval of the minutes or whatnot. And then on your screen, I'm going to pop this thing up. And it says, April Delegates meeting in progress. Do you support the motion? So can people just click yes, 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 yes? If you're seeing it, I see lots. Wow, that's a whole lot of yeses. Excellent, excellent. If you're not sure how it works, click no. But it seems that everyone has figured that out. Great. 23 yeses. Excellent. We're going to keep, in order to keep the meeting flowing, I've closed the poll now. And that's that. In order to keep the meeting flowing, we're going to keep those votes up for maybe 30 seconds at most, maybe a minute, because we'll be pretty clearly able to see if the motion is going to pass or not. Other than that, if you have questions or if you wanted to share a link of some sort or information that you want other people to use, there's a chat function at the bottom of your screen, right next to where it has a bunch of different things, it'll say chat. You can click on that and a window will pop up and you can write, hi, I hope you all are doing well. There you go. So that's I just put that into the chat. if people need any questions around that, around process or whatnot, throw it in there, and we'll see if that gets everybody going. Then, yeah, and the last thing I was going to reiterate is that we're going to mute everybody, and then we're going to only strategically unmute as long as you raise your hand. If you are struggling on trying to raise your hand, then in the chat function, you can message me where it says to. You can write a message to Mohammed or to Skylar or to Jennifer, any of the Labor Council staff. Say, hey, I want to speak, but I can't raise my hand. Can you help us out? Actually, it would be better if you would just do that to Susan, because Susan's in the same room as John, and therefore maintaining social distance, but yet can just lean over to him and say, please make sure that Michelle Johnston is given the ability to speak. Okay, I think that's pretty much it. Good. All right, and then are there any questions? If you have any questions, you can put them in the chat function. Or actually, I'm going to unmute everybody, which might be problematic, but we're going to try it right now anyways. Yeah. Okay,
So we all should speak at once now, right?
if you have a question, are there any questions? Wow, this is...
I have a question. I tried to put in a background picture. I'm just curious about how software works, and I don't see my own video camera now. How do I get out of that and put my own camera up now?
Yeah, that's a bit too much, too technically inclined. You don't understand. I'm sorry, you're gonna have to sort that out yourself.
You're on your own there.
Here on the screen, should we be finding the response to any polls or votes that we have here?
It'll pop up automatically whenever we launch the poll. So I'll launch another one right now. And this should tell you. There you go. That's how we launch a poll. And then you can and then I'll take it down when we're done.
So, Mohammed, may I ask a question, Mohammed?
Yes.
So I'm new to this whole online tool. How do I raise my hand?
You see a more button on the bottom right?
Bottom right, reactions?
More there? What do you see in reactions?
More. If you click on participants, then on the far right-hand side is raise hand.
Far right-hand side. Oh, I see it.
Yeah.
And then there, and I hope this isn't a silly question, but we're muting everyone just to be more efficient for the meeting?
Yeah, so that there's not people's backgrounds.
Oh, okay. And then when there's an opportunity to vote, we do that how?
There will be a pop-up screen that'll show up.
That's pretty high background.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Sean, did you have something that you wanted to add?
Not at this time. I actually went. Yeah, how? I know you just discussed it. I get it.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna mute everybody again because
I got it.
And then I'm gonna. Much better now. All right. Okay. So now let's go to Sean, and I'm gonna unmute you. Go ahead, Sean. What was your question?
I understand how to raise my hand now. The 3 buttons at the end. So I got that. Thank you. Oh, but also to Mohammed. I joined the conversation a little bit late, and so I caught the tail end of someone at a company, and they're being sweated or something like that. As far as this COVID, am I right or am I wrong?
I have no idea what you're speaking of.
Okay, so you were just discussing, and you said, "Does everybody have any questions?" I wasn't part of that discussion.
Oh, yeah, no,
Talking about-
I was just going over the process of how this meeting is gonna work.
Okay,
But I'm not gonna do that all over again, because
that's
it's
fine.
in a minute and a half, John's gonna take over,
Mhm.
and we're gonna start the meeting. But I'm sure it'll be, as long as you know how to raise your hand and
Yes.
know how to use the chat function,
Mhm.
use that to interact with us, and we'll try to guide you through this thing as best as possible.
Okay, so chat, I can raise the question and then send it, and you guys get it, and then you can bring the question up during the meeting.
Yeah.
Got it. Got
I'm
it.
gonna mute you now.
Okay.
And I'm gonna kick it over to John,
Yes.
who I believe is gonna start the meeting.
One thing, Mohammed, before you start or before John starts, can I just, for those who missed my instructions, there are currently 65 participants on Zoom. It's hard for us to take attendance of everybody knowing, people's first names, last names, and locals. So if you haven't already done so, at the top right-hand corner, you can also do speaker view or gallery view. If you go on the top right-hand corner, or on your phone, just swipe right. You can see everybody online, or you can do just whoever's speaking. On the top right-hand corner, there's a little blue window, like a ... Click on it and rename yourself. So, I see some people has just their iPhones. I see some people with just their first names. If you could rename yourself so that it says first name, last name, and local. And then also for those who have just called in, I need you to identify yourself. For example, there's a phone number 416-769-6814. Could you tell me who this is so that I can rename you? And there's an iPhone, and then there's Paula and Alex. So I just need to know those details. Thanks.
Oh, who on the line is here from 416-769-6814?
No, that's my number, Milan.
Moan?
Correct. Yeah, local 553 president.
553 president. Okay.
You got that?
Yeah.
Can you rename him, Mohammed? I've lost the visual.
I think so.
Okay.
We good?
Yeah.
Also, Paula and iPhone, could you rename yourself? And Nathan, rename yourself. And then I think any other questions, just ask us through chat and John will host the meeting. Thank you.
Okay, welcome everybody. Can just checking to make sure the volume works, and Mohammed, if you can nod if it's all right. Volume, okay. So welcome everybody to the first virtual delegates meeting in 149 years of our history.
Wow.
I guess the wonders of modern technology have got us meeting in this way, and I know that many people are using this new technology to keep on carrying on the business of your union or the organization you work with. So we are going to try and do this meeting as well as we possibly can. I really want to ask for your forgiveness for when I mess up, because I'm absolutely sure that sometime over the course of this evening, I am going to make a mistake or two, but we have the staff that are working to help us do that. Now it's 7:30, and in some neighborhoods right now, people are going out on their porch and they're applauding the healthcare workers that are out there, putting themselves at risk. And so we thought we should start the meeting before we do the land acknowledgement by doing that. And this is the screen digital image that we've created now to all workers who serve our communities and keep us healthy. We see you and we thank you. So that means people who, we don't actually see on a day-to-day basis, whose work is taken for granted. So if we can, everybody just do a silent applause to start, to thank you to all those workers that are making sure that our society is working, that things are being kept together and that we're being kept safe. Thank you very much for that. We are taking minutes. This is being recorded. There's not being a roll call because we are able to take that off of who's in attendance. And we will start with a harassment statement, and Jennifer is going to read that.
Yes, I am going to read that. Mutual respect, cooperation, and understanding are strongly held principles of the trade union movement. We will neither condone nor tolerate harassing or discriminatory behavior that creates an intimidating, hostile, or offensive environment and undermines the dignity or self-esteem of any individual. An injury to one is an injury to all. Speech or conduct which is racist, sexist, homophobic, or discriminatory in any way is unacceptable to trade unionists and only serves to divide us. Our policies and practices must reflect this commitment to equality as we work together for justice and dignity in our workplaces, our unions, and our communities.
Thanks, Jennifer. And we are meeting on traditional territories of Mississaugas of the New Credit, even though we are very spread around. And as we know, this territory is subject to the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Treaty between the Anishinaabe, the Mississaugas, and the Haudenosaunee that bound them to share the territory and protect the land. Subsequent Indigenous nations and peoples, Europeans, and all newcomers have been invited into this treaty in the spirit of peace, friendship, and respect. So some people have just come on recently, so I'm going to ask Mohammed to basically describe the Zoom processes again, including the chat function.
Okay, I'll do this quickly. So if you want to, there's three main things that we need to remember here today. One is if you want to speak, you got to raise your hand. And if you're on your phone, there's a more button. You hit that, or a ... button, and you hit that, and it gives you an option to raise your hand. On the right hand side, if you're on your desktop and you're looking at your participants, you can click on your name and it'll give you an option to raise hands over there as well. So that's really important. So if you want to raise hands, please do so. If it becomes really unmanageable for you to use that, or if it's completely confusing, then message one of us, myself, Skylar, or Jennifer, in the chat function. The chat is also available to you at the bottom of your screen if you're using a laptop or an iPad or the Zoom app, where it says chat. Then you can write whatever you want to. You can send it to either an individual or to everybody in the meeting. And the last thing is around voting. When there's a moment that opens up when you have to vote, we're going to open up a vote, and you'll either click yes, no, or abstain. And the voting is going to be really quick. We're going to have it for about 30 seconds or so at most, maybe a minute, to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to vote, and then we'll move on as quickly as possible. So I'll leave it at that. And then if there's any questions, just message me in the chat function and I'll try to walk you through it. Back to you, John. John?
Okay, thank you. We are going to have some glitches. I can guarantee you there'll be glitches aplenty before we finish this meeting. Susan's going to put up the agenda. It has been sent out today to all the delegates. The agenda, the statement, and the minutes have been sent out. So hopefully you've had a chance to look at that. We're not going to put the minutes up on the screen because everybody's had that. But so I will. We will skip with movers and seconders of the minutes. So we'll assume there's a motion to accept the minutes. And now I'm open if there are any errors or omissions in the minutes that you received today in the email. And if there's not, we will have the motion, the vote on on the minutes, and somebody will put that up so you can all vote. We'd like you to vote early and often, as the old expression goes in certain places. And I think we can say that those minutes are adopted. Next item is, instead of strike reports, because the education unions have been in a whole series of job actions, both full withdrawal of service, other kinds of job actions, and some have been going back into bargaining now, and some have tentative agreements. We will ask the education affiliates to give a brief report on where things are at with their organization. I think we're going to start with Philomena. But we have to find you on the list to be able to unmute you. So this will take a second or two. Okay, Philomena.
Okay, hi everyone. Philomena Farrar, president of York Catholic Teachers. As you know, WECTA reached a tentative agreement probably hours before the minister announced that schools would be closed for 2 weeks after the March break. Since then, it has been brought forward to our membership. We've had a series of virtual town hall meetings that have gone pretty successful, actually. They've been organized pretty well, where members are able to get a lowdown of the deal and ask their questions. And if they're unable to attend a virtual town hall meeting, there is a manner in which they can submit their questions about the tentative agreement, and our provincial office will provide a response. We've always had electronic voting for ratification, and we've had it for a while now. It will be held on April 7th and 8th. And at that point, we technically should be starting local bargaining, but at the moment that could be a challenge because we're not supposed to be meeting, which poses the additional challenge that should this tentative deal ratify and we get the monies that are now being reinvested into our schools that we lost this year, how will we move forward in staffing for September? So we're hoping that our provincial body can have some talks with the government should local bargaining be suspended as a result of COVID-19, if we can proceed with receiving some of these monies from the deal to staff our schools in September. So that's something we'll have to wait and see as we move into these interesting times right now. I can't hear anybody.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much, Philomena. So next, we'll ask Mike Platt from OSSTF. And then whether Vanessa wants to say a couple words. And then after that, from ETFO, Yolanda is not able to join us. So I see Pam Bedlestone is on the line and Felicia is on the line. So I'll ask somebody from ETFO. But first we'll go to OSSTF, Mike Platt.
Good evening, everybody. This is again, yes, Mike Platt from OSSTF Toronto. And so we actually went back to central bargaining today. And so I haven't had any word today on how that has been going, but we were called back to the table and we did go. And, you know, so there is central bargaining going on now. Just after we went off onto the March break, and then we had the initial 2-week shutdown. Provincial OSSTF did suspend our strike action, so we don't currently have any strike actions occurring now, as we are in sort of the current stay-at-home phase. And so yeah, that's about it. Now on the local front, we have been bargaining locally part of our local collective agreement as well. And we haven't been doing that in the last 3 weeks. And I guess we'll see how that where that takes us. Anyways, I think that's it for me for now, John.
Thank you. Vanessa, did you want to add anything? And then I'll ask Pam Battlestone and Felicia to see if you want to add something from EDFO.
I think Mike did a pretty thorough job. For us, we were also in York, local bargaining before the COVID 2-week break and now month break. So hopefully we'll be able to get back to that at some point, but Mike pretty much covered it all. Thank you.
Okay. Pam Battlestone, are you able to give a brief report from EDFO?
No. Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi. Yeah, I don't know if Yolanda is on board here or.
No, she's not on the line, I'm afraid.
Okay, so I think, I mean, it's public knowledge. ETFO provincial central bargaining, we have a tentative agreement. Our tentative agreement ratification votes begin on April the 23rd. In terms of our own local bargaining, John and others, we've been at it for almost a year. We are close. So, but I understand that that's not typical of other locals, and I understand that that provides some real challenges. I must say, I am like absolutely gobsmacked that there are some agreements that do not allow for local bargaining to transpire or occur until there's a central bargained agreement, ratified agreement. So that's new to me. But centrally, we're in good stead in terms of a tentative agreement ratification vote coming up. I can't predict what that outcome will be. And locally, we continue to bargain at our local YRDSB tables.
Thanks. Felicia, did you want anything from ETT? And then I'm going to ask Miguel if you want to add anything from QP. Felicia? And it takes a minute for us to unmute people, so just be patient with us, please. Felicia? Oh, maybe. Felicia, you're unmuted. Did you want to say something?
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I was muted on my end, sorry. All right, so it was, as everybody knows, this government has been really hard to bargain with. So it was an uphill battle from the beginning. And we did end up coming up with a tentative agreement during the March break. And so we await our membership voting on this. And so I'm not sure about the date that Pam gave us. I think that might be her town hall meeting date. The ratification vote taking place between April 23rd and April 27th. So at that point, we'll see how the members are voting on this. And I think that's pretty much it. Unless you have questions for me, it's basically a status quo agreement. We were able to preserve our kindergarten program as is with a teacher and designated early childhood educator. We preserved sick time as it was before. So with this government, this is the agreement that we could get at this time. And I think our members know that 2022 will be critical if we want to see changes in the future. I think that's all I'll say about it for now.
Thanks. And Miguel, can you fill us in on where QP 4400 is? Miguel, you're all right to speak now? Oh, you got to unmute him. No, Miguel, I think you're not muted in your own self. Okay, I can hear. Try now. No, I'm afraid that's not working. Muted. Yeah. Maybe you're muted on your computer. Okay, so while we're trying to figure that out, I will just say this, that the all of the, the agreements that are being put in place now are the fact that the government has walked back on so many of their demands of massive cuts is a testament to the struggle of education workers and allies and others that have taken on this fight and that have forced this government to back away from its intent. So I just want to really honor and thank everybody who's been involved in that. So Miguel's just gonna double check and see, but it might be you're muted on your computer, Miguel.
Alaikum salam, buddy.
Miguel, no, I don't think that's working. I guess we're gonna have to. Want to just try saying a few words, Miguel? Okay, we're gonna move on then to the other, but hopefully, Miguel, you can get that sorted out because you do have something to be saying in a few minutes. This month is Equal Pay Day coming up, and it's something that our Labor Council has supported for a long time. It's no accident that now you suddenly see governments all across this country realizing that frontline workers of all kinds, whether they're grocery workers or healthcare workers, have been historically underpaid and giving them wage increases in the middle of this crisis. But Equal Pay Day is about systemic and historic discrimination. And we're lucky that we have Sister Kim Manteluk from the Child Care Coalition and CUPE to do a presentation on Equal Pay Day. I'm going to turn it over to.
Thanks, John. Hi, everyone. As John said, my name is Kim Manteluk, and I'm from CUPE 2484. And I also work for the Ontario Coalition for Better Childcare. So I really want to thank you for the opportunity to speak about Equal Pay Day today. As part of my work with the Ontario Coalition for Better Childcare, I get to represent the OCBCC with the Equal Pay Coalition, who organizes Equal Pay Day each year. I'm just going to pause for a second. Susan, do you think you could put the slideshow up?
Yep, she's trying to.
Okay. I saw it pop up for a second and then it disappeared.
This is what they call the joys of technology.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
And if you just want to run it, it should be timed. Perfect. Great. Thank you. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of background on the Equal Pay Coalition. The coalition was formed in 1976 and comprises trade unions, business women's groups, and community organizations seeking to end gender pay discrimination and close the gender pay gap through legislation, collective bargaining, and social initiatives. Most of the day-to-day work is done pro bono by the co-chairs, which are Faye Faraday and Jan Borway. We also support them as coalition partners, but as the coalition has no sustained funding, we really do a lot of the work based on donations by the trade unions. So I know that Jan and Faye appreciate any donations made throughout the year from your organizations. We have had many hard-won successes over the years, but unfortunately, we still have not closed the gender pay gap. So the work continues. Based on the latest 2016 census data, on average, women across Canada face a 32% gender pay gap, but we know that that doesn't tell the whole story. The gap increases substantially when intersecting with other forms of discrimination. So racialized women experience a 40% gender pay gap, Indigenous women 45%, immigrant women 55%, and women with disabilities a whopping 56%. Discrimination in pay is not limited to one career or demographic. It affects women of all ages, races, and levels of education. And despite the research, many myths still exist. One I often hear is that we should just choose better paying jobs. As a college-trained early childhood educator, I take particular offense to this one. No one chooses to have their work undervalued and underpaid. It isn't that women choose lower paying jobs. It is that women-dominated fields, such as the caring industry, are much less respected and less well paid because it's women who do the work. Women are dominating jobs on the front line of the COVID-19 pandemic and are experiencing the negative impacts disproportionately. What would we do without the women right now providing nursing, cleaning, care work, food prep, or working in grocery stores, drugstores, and online retail stores? The value of this work is undeniable, but their earnings and the gender pay gap reflects a deep systemic undervaluing of this work, like John mentioned earlier. This pandemic is wiping out several female-dominated sectors such as childcare, retail, hospitality, arts and culture, and airlines. Many of these sectors are commonly at risk of higher unemployment rates, lower wages, and less job security. But at this time, along with the financial implications, women are also facing increased health risks, increased childcare and elder care responsibilities, increased risk of domestic violence, racism, xenophobia, and increased risk to housing. Many Indigenous women already don't have access to clean water, housing, or medical care, and this pandemic just further amplifies these hardships. To move forward, we really need the government to fully value women's work and take direct action to deliver real community care. The federal government's response so far has shown that it is possible. We need them to support our most vulnerable. They can do this by directly funding First Nations governments so Indigenous peoples have clean water, housing, and medical supports. We need them to ensure all workers have access to at least 10 paid emergency days in times like these. We need them to prevent employers from requiring doctor's notes to access paid sick days and EI, and provide more support for women relying on EI, such as reducing qualifying hours, increase EI staffing, establish a multilingual hotline, and reduce barriers to accessing the Canadian Emergency Response Benefit. Make it clear that racism and xenophobia will not be tolerated, and fund the Anti-Racism Directorate. And last but not least, develop a fully funded public childcare system, because we know that our communities can't work without a reliable childcare system. So we're at the end of my presentation, and this is when we get to the good stuff. So Equal Pay Day is an international event that draws attention to how undervalued and underpaid women's work is compared to men's. The COVID-19 crisis highlights how women's crucial work keeps our communities going. Without women's work, this economy doesn't work. This year, we'll recognize that day on April 4th with an online rally. Obviously, we've had to sort of switch things up a little bit, but I think it's going to be great. There's going to be exciting speakers. We're going to have Marie Clark Walker from the CLC, Patty Coates from the OFL will be joining us. We'll have Pam from 15 and Fairness, some speakers from United Food and Commercial Workers, as well as several associations from across the nation. We're going to have real-time interactions and community building actions. Jan and Faye will MC the rally starting at 1 o'clock this coming Saturday. So I have 3 actions that I'm going to ask of you today. So first, right now, while you have all your technology out, if you can pop over to the equalpaycoalition.org, that's their website. And if you can just click on their button to join the rally. So if you can register today and then remember to actually join us on Saturday, that would be great. You can also go to Twitter, and their handle is @equalpayon, and you can register there. The second item I'm going to ask you to do is please invite people to join us. Share this information widely with your networks. We want to make sure this is really big. And then also, if you would like to use some of the shareables, they're on the website, and that's a great opportunity to bring attention to this as well. And third, last but not least, please meet us at the rally. Remember to wear red. We wear red to recognize the day. And if you can, in your webcam, try and put your union flag or banner so everyone can see where you're coming from. And lastly, I would just like to thank you again for this time to talk about Equal Pay Day and the Equal Pay Coalition. And I am wishing you and your loved ones continued good health. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Kim. Really appreciate that. And we will share those slides with all the delegates. So what's on front of all of our minds right now is COVID-19, the health impact, the fear that grips families and communities, particularly if we have loved ones who are older, and the economic impact, as Kim has just outlined. In particular, it's not hitting everybody in the same way. So we've spent quite a while over these last 2 weeks trying to put together a political response to COVID-19, as well as help for individuals. And on our website at laborcouncil.ca/COVID-19, you will see 2 presentations. One is things that individuals can do to get assistance, and that's everything from how to apply for EI to the other forms of assistance that are on board. But also, we've drawn from the curriculum of the Labor Community Advocate training that Labor Community Services teaches, Najib Sufyan, and included links there about how, what do you do if you've got credit issues, what do you do if you've got, rental issues, and a whole number of areas that people are, going to be looking at if they're going through a financial or personal crisis. As well as we know the social isolation may result in a lot of stress, may result in domestic increase of violence, and a whole number of areas that are taught in our Labor Community Advocate course. So that's available on our website. But tonight we're going to discuss, debate, I guess, a statement which we put together trying to draw on all of the best information we can from the CLC, from the OFL, from 15 and Fairness, our community allies, our different affiliates, what they've been facing. So that statement was sent out to you as an attachment. But we're going to walk through it with different members of our board, outlining pieces of the statement. There will be a slideshow. Skylar's going to be putting up on the screen so you can follow. And then we'll open it up for discussion, because what we really want to do, and I think the crucial area of this, having this virtual meeting, is to hear back from delegates, what is it that's happening with your own members, with your sector? What are things you think we need to make sure of that we're responding to when we're dealing with, we're on the conference call with the mayor and city leaders, we're dealing with provincial and federal leaders. The CLC has just launched a campaign a few minutes ago on one of the areas we're talking about here, which is credit card interest rates. So we're drawing information from you, and we will be using that to shape the work that all of our staff does and our executive board in the coming days and weeks and months. So I'm going to turn it over then to start this with Jeff Irons to do the outline of the 8 priorities. Jeff.
All righty. Am I unmuted? Oh, I guess I am. All right, we outline 8 priorities for governments. Ensure health and safety of workers, ensure paid protective sick leave, fill gaps in proposed EI benefits, ensure public services are available for all workers and particularly those on the front lines. Childcare for essential workers is key. Propose initiatives that meet community needs and create retained jobs. Protect workers from bankruptcy, homelessness, and impoverishment. Ensure the differential impact on Ontario's diverse communities is addressed. And finally, reject a return to an austerity agenda or worse.
Thanks, Jeff. Jinky, do you want to take us through the health and safety?
For health
First
and
one?
safety. Okay, for health and safety, we want to ensure that health and safety of all workers, particularly frontline workers who cannot work remotely. Those in authority should ensure that social distancing, hygiene, and sanitation protocols and the time to practice are adapted to all workplaces to allow safe working conditions. Work closely with health and safety committees and unions to conduct hazard assessments and areas of potential exposure for workers and adopt strict workplace protocols. Provide the necessary equipment, supplies, and correct information to prevent the spread of COVID-19 and an adequate supply of N95 respiratory where appropriate. Ensure the right to refuse unsafe work is protected and an increased workplace inspection in all sectors. Work closely with unions to provide accurate and timely information to employees about accessing benefits and support. Provide compassionate care and bereavement leave to support those employees, as well as mental and counseling support. Ensure workers' compensation to any worker who interacts with the public and contracts COVID-19. Provide financial support for nonprofit organizations that are on the front line, especially those who cannot enforce social distancing for operational reasons.
Thanks, Jinky. Miguel, do we have you on unmuted now? Can you try? No, that's not working. Okay, so I'll read this section that Miguel was going to read. We want sick leave for all. Workers need to have access to paid sick leave through employment standards at the provincial levels. And there's no irony to the fact that the Conservative government took away the 2 sick pay days that we had won under Bill 148. So workers, we want asking the province to provide at least 21 paid emergency leaves now, 7 paid days as a permanent right. And but during emergencies such as this pandemic, workers need an additional 14 days of leave. And we want to permanently eliminate the sick note requirements for all workers, including migrant and undocumented workers, since it puts unnecessary strain on our healthcare system. Next, Andrea on EI. We unmuted Andrea. And after her will be Lily. So is Andrea unmuted yet? We put the EI screen on.
I think she's there.
Andrea, are you?
I'm looking for her.
Okay, there you are, Andrea. Go ahead.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Unemployment insurance. Significant changes have been proposed by the federal government to the EI system and supplementary supports for those who do not qualify. However, government must undertake the following step in order to minimize the impact of the changes. Waive the 1-week waiting period for regular EI benefit, increase benefit level from 55% to 60% of income, ensure migrant workers have access to all forms of benefit, make all benefits EI regular, EI sick, Canada Emergency Response Benefit, retroactive to the beginning of the crisis in Canada. Delivery must be nimble and accessible. Open direct communication with employers group and unions so that they can operate with full and accurate information and facilitate information sharing with employees.
Thanks, Andrea. Next is public services. Lily?
Okay, public services including childcare for essential workers. Ensure that public services, including healthcare and childcare, are properly funded, accessible, and affordable for all workers. particularly for frontline workers who cannot work remotely. For parents who are reluctant to take their children to a childcare provider offering multifamily services, and childcare workers who are reluctant to risk multiple exposures, consider having customized childcare. Boost healthcare capacity. Well-paid trained staff must be increased in hospitals, long-term care, and home care.
Thanks, Lily. Next, Hendrik on jobs.
Considering the following types of initiatives to keep people working, to stimulate the economy, and to be prepared to serve the needs of a growing economy when the crisis subsides. First would be speeding up public sector infrastructure to act as a fiscal stimulus, create jobs, fill backlogs, and improve public services using low interest loans or government bonds. TCHC building energy retrofitting and repairs, school buildings, energy retrofits and repairs, public transit systems, capital expenditures, and state of good repair. Prioritize green manufacturing with the dual purpose of stimulating the economy and helping to meet Transform TO's goals and Canada's Paris Agreement commitments. Clearly communicate flexibility measures to assist nonprofits that receive funding directly from government as they manage their transfer payment agreements and provincially funded program requirements. Subhead, social services that are required to temporarily discontinue services should continue to receive transfer payments and funding so that they do survive the crisis. And local cultural organizations, which serve as pipelines to the larger entertainment industry, should continue to receive grants so that they survive the crisis. Support development of local supply chains so that we are not as reliant on materials and parts from other countries.
Thank you. Poverty and protection, Vicky Power.
Okay, protecting workers from financial ruin. Government must take steps to protect people from precipitous changes such as bankruptcy or homelessness. Impose a moratorium on all credit card interest or a cap of 2% on interest rates. The federal government should instruct utilities, banks, landlords, credit card companies, and financial institutions to extend and relax mortgage, rent, and bill payment requirements, loan servicing obligations, and other responsibilities facing consumers and households. The provincial government should instruct all provincially regulated institutions to extend and relax payment requirements on financial responsibilities facing consumers and households, including rent and mortgage payments. The provincial government should provide a top-up to 80% of income for those receiving EI and the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, and rents should be frozen.
Thank you. Next is equity and impacted communities, Ainsworth.
All right, I'm here. Okay. Impacted communities. It's important that health and economic crisis it is important to recognize that health and economic crisis affect communities in different ways. We need to push the governments to, one, ensure all communities have access to current and appropriate information, establish dedicated COVID hotlines in different languages for all workers and employers. Two, fund the Anti-Racism Directorate to challenge xenophobia and racism. Three, implement an immediate moratorium on all immigration enforcement, such as detentions and deportations. And lastly, relax or remove work permits and permanent resident status rules and swiftly grant open permits to workers in transition.
Thank you. And the final piece is about austerity and what Naomi Klein describes as shock doctrine, the things that the people in Bay Street and Wall Street are figuring how they want to move politics at the end of this. Kingsley? And you may have to unmute Kingsley. No. Somebody unmuting Kingsley?
He's been
okay,
unmuted.
Kingsley. Yep.
Avoid austerity and shock doctrine politics. The labor movement and our allies must be prepared for the politics of the shock doctrine and the fight against austerity measures. Our society should be more equal, not less.
coming out of the crisis. We will fight against tax cuts for the wealthy and demand tax fairness. Demand fair taxation on digital commerce. Giant technology corporations, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, and Google pay no or little tax in Canada. Fair taxes would bring in revenue, retain Canadian jobs, support quality journalism, and safeguard our culture. Demand public equity stakes in corporations as a condition of government financial support. The funding that supports industry and business to jobs and income and ensure transparency. Resist opening up of collective agreements when emergency is declared. Be on guard for promotion of a permanent culture shift towards online transactions from grocery shopping to education. Demand the federal government require banks to ease credit card interest rates at the same time that banks are accessing billions in public funds. They are still charging interest rates of 21% and more to individuals. Prepare for a tax on pensions if business and pension fund managers call for reductions in benefits or seek to switch to defined contribution or target pensions. Press for further enhancements to the Canada Pension Plan. Make sure the full capacity of government and the central bank is used ambitiously and fairly. Commit to investments and policies which would lead to a stable, sustainable economy based on climate justice and a Green New Deal for Canada.
Thank you, Kingsley. So that's the outline of the discussion. And the second, Susan is going to just remind you of how to get on the list. And I will mute myself.
Okay. Thank you. It's good to have everybody here, and we know that the discussion is a really important part of the decisions that we make about our statements. It's going to be important to hear from different sectors on this. So those of you who came on earlier on will know that if you want to be recognized to speak, that you have to do something that's called raise hands. And for the people who are online through Zoom, the way you do this is by going to your little ribbon and hitting the participants button. When you do that, it opens up a screen on the right-hand side of the screen. And if you hover just below the list of participants, you'll see something that says raise hands. And if you touch that, it will raise a little blue hand in front of between your name and the information about you at the end. And that's how we'll know that you want to have something to say in the debate. Now, if you are on the phone, we learned the other day that people on the phone can also participate by hitting *9. So if you're on the phone and you want to participate, put *9, and that does the same thing on our screen. It shows up on our screen that you want to have something to say in this debate. And we're going to ask people to talk for no more than 2 minutes. So if you can time yourself, that would be great. Thank you.
Sorry, there's Peter and Rob that are on the line. If you can go on chat and put your name and local down so that we can take the attendance, or put your full name on the list. And there's a couple of people who joined by phone. What?
So if your phone number is 647-991-4081, could you please unmute yourself and identify who you are?
Yeah.
647-991-4081.
I don't see the list of where people have put their. So Jennifer, I think we'll just have to go on.
Okay.
I'm trying to see, we have 3 people who put their names up, but I'm trying to find that list.
I have Kim Nasello who put their hand up, Michelle Johnston who put their hand up, Judith Logan, and Tim McGuire. So those are the 4 people I see.
Okay, so Kim is the first one who we're going to unmute. Okay, Kim, do you want to go ahead?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so I work for LCBO. So I have a few questions that I'd like to address. One, with the presentation that you did, that's fantastic, the presentation. But are you taking this presentation to the government to try to enforce these changes that you want to happen in this presentation? My second question is when, and I don't know if you can answer this question or not, when members are applying for EI, a lot of my members are taking a leave of absence because of their fear of what could happen with contracting COVID-19, because we don't have any protective gear that we have. All we have are gloves and wiping down surfaces and that. We're in the process right now of getting plexiglass and getting a plexi mask, but that's in the works. So a lot of them have already taken time off. So
if I can answer that, both of them. The one is, yeah, the statement, it will inform all of the work the Labor Council will be doing in the next period of time, communicating this to different levels of government, our MPPs, members of parliament, from the Prime Minister on down. We have an ongoing table working with the City of Toronto officially around Labor's input to these things. And then on the second question, each union will have a different way of addressing that. There is material, as I said, up on our website, laborcouncil.ca/COVID-19. But the answer about what if people, decide they want to stay away from work, really your own union is going to have to give you the advice on that, because we don't want to give you the wrong advice and have somebody getting in trouble. But and a number of the law firms that are labor law firms have information up on their own pages. And I know Goldblatt and Kosky, Minsky, Kaleri, and others have those kinds of information up on their page. But it's best and safest to get that information from your own union staff.
So when they apply under EI, are they applying under sick benefits, or are they going to apply under CERB?
And that's what I'm saying. That's best you get that advice specifically from your own union. Okay.
Yeah, we don't know that. That's the question. That's our $1 million question.
Okay. Well, like I say, we don't want to give you the wrong suggestion of what they should be doing. But those websites do provide information, and you should be really checking with the staff of your own organization. Okay. So I got 4 more speakers: Michelle, followed by Judith Logan, Tim McGuire, Kingsley Kwok. Michelle Johnson. Michelle seems to have vanished.
I'm looking for her to unmute her. Oh, there you go. I'm muted.
I think, can everybody hear me?
Yep.
So thank you for pulling that presentation together, John and team. It is very important. I'll speak from some of the members that we represent at the Society of United Professionals. As many of you know, we represent the Legal Aid Ontario lawyers, and this COVID-19 has kept us pretty busy trying to represent the members there. These lawyers are frontline workers representing their clients in the courthouses. Social distancing is impossible. So from a health and safety perspective, we're very concerned about what was happening there. It seems to be now that we've got the Ministry of the Attorney General to get involved. They are now working on establishing virtual courtrooms. So that's a bit helpful. And our next hill to climb is now dealing with how we're going to manage the clients of the lawyers, because they are folks that are in the prisons, close quarters. So we're trying to work with our legal aid lawyers to see what we can do to put pressure on the government to help those folks as well.
Thanks very much, Michelle. Next, we have Judith Logan.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I also applaud putting the presentation together. While in my local, I'm also the Society of United Professionals along with Michelle. What I'm finding in my particular area is that while we are fortunate that we are continuing to work, the challenge we have is some spouses are not working and are delayed in accessing federal funds because, of course, it's been going on 4 weeks. And why they waived the 1 week waiting period, you can't even get in to figure out if your application has even been there. So I'm wondering if there's something that we can add at the provincial level that can provide that stopgap, because many people who have been laid off haven't had any funds and can't even get any answers at a federal level. Is there nothing happening that we can do to pressure the provincial government as an interim step?
I think that's a really good suggestion, and we'll take a note of that and see what we can do on top of that.
Thank you.
We do know that all of the federal civic servants, the Public Service Alliance of Canada members and the PIPS members are completely stretched, whether it's dealing with unemployment insurance or the new benefits that are being announced. So people, there's a degree of patience we'll have to have with those people trying to do an incredible job when over 1 million Canadians have applied for EI. But
absolutely,
the province keeps pointing to the feds and saying they should do this, they should do that, and we can't let the provincial government away without taking their responsibility. Next, I have Tim McGuire, followed by Kingsley.
I have two things to say, and I'll be quick about them. One is, a very inclusive list of priorities. First of all, I should back up. Thank you very much for organizing this tonight. We're all isolated, but to continue to work together. I see, it's a very, it's an exclusive list of priorities. And my question is, how can, and maybe you've had some discussion on the executive about how we can, in isolation, in this crisis situation, reimagining what collective action might look like for the next period of time achieving these. People are talking now about 12 weeks of isolation and then possibly another go around in the fall. So what can we do collectively in isolation, political action in a new way to achieve some of the things that need to be achieved in the short run, like trying to fill some of the gaps at the federal and provincial level around income supports? What can we do with all of our members in isolation, very often at home, et cetera, use their technology to make demands on technology, phone calls, email blasts, et cetera? How can we reimagine what that action might look like to help achieve some of those demands that we have? And the second kind of connected thing I would say is around the income gaps, the gaps in what's being put forward currently by the federal government, by Trudeau, et cetera. There are a lot of gaps, and I think there could be, I was on a call with 15 in Fairness the other night. They did a Zoom meeting. Getting information out around those gaps so people actually understand what they are. And again, connected with my earlier comment, how can we use our collective political action in a new way to help push for those to happen? Ford's being complimented on his leadership by lots of people that I see as allies of ours. He's actually done nothing. It's a lot of talk. So how could we pressure him, for instance, using our collective digital action to push him to actually do some of the things he's talked about?
Well, I think all kinds of organizations are trying to figure out right now how to, what are the different ways of doing that. Phone calls still work, although, many politicians' offices are shut down as well, but I'm sure they're checking the phone, emails, e-blasts. The one explicit thing that you can do as soon as we're finished this meeting is go to the CLC website, canadianlabour.org, where they have just launched about an hour ago a major campaign to force the banks to drop the interest rates on credit cards. Because as we know, they're over 21%. A lot of poor people are going to max out their credit cards in order to put food on the table before they get those other checks. And the banks set those rates at 21% back when mortgages were 14 or 16%, but they've kept them now, even though the gap with real interest is almost 20% itself. So that's one campaign we're going to drive, and there'll be other campaigns, including some of the work that 15 and Fairness is doing and the OFL is doing, that will be pushing on those other levels. I have Kingsley, and then Darnell George is lined up, and you may be on the phone, but first we'll do Kingsley Kwok.
Thank you, John. In the provincial healthcare situation, we are now seeing hospitals rationing protective equipment daily, and we are still seeing the chief medical officer of health saying their long-term care does not necessarily use all the protective equipment that is available like in hospitals. Very troubling. As I spoke earlier about austerity, this government, or the various government, is still doing things the way they are used to doing business. The federal government is still going through this Canadian Emergency Response Benefit by going through employers. We really need just a benefit that is directly accessible to workers or people who are out of work because of this. The provincial financial assistance that they have announced, about so many $1 billion, $10 billion of it is simply tax deferral, so that businesses and individuals don't have to pay taxes until later. Hardly the everything the government can do. And so this is a long list of goals that we are looking for to help workers, and I think we should press on all of them, so that whether the people out of work, people who are stuck at home, or essential workers can all access all these important benefits that we want them to get.
Thank you, Kingsley. Next I have on the phone 416-806-7985. I think that's Darnell. Is that you?
No, it's Carolyn.
Oh, sorry, Carolyn. Okay, Carolyn, go ahead, and then we're looking for Darnell from SEIU. Carolyn, go ahead.
Okay, thanks very much. Carolyn Egan, Steelworkers 8300. This is an incredibly important conversation, and I think the statement, which is probably one of the longest we've ever put through, is hugely important as a plan forward. And I think that when we look, and certainly in my membership, I mean, our hotel sector devastated, so many people being laid off manufacturing. I won't go through it, but people are in desperate straits. And I mean, people involved in rent strikes already and all of that. And I think the thing that we're trying to talk to people about is to also look at the fact that so many members in so many unions have taken actions, whether it be the auto workers shutting down the whole auto industry pretty well in North America, or sanitation workers, or transit workers, and certainly in retail, groceries, et cetera, demanding the things that they need. And of course, the healthcare workers. I mean, it's going on. And in many cases, spontaneous, some with their unions, leading them there. But workers are saying, we will not stand, for being put in the conditions we're putting. And I think that sense of what is possible now, I mean, you talked about the shock doctrine, and Naomi Klein talks about it, the things that governments and corporations try to do when we're in crises like this, and we've never seen one quite like this one, where they implement things that they want to maintain. If you look at Israel, Poland, you see 2 years, there can be barely any political activity going on. Or in France, they're trying to push through and are pushing through the pension reforms that the trade union movement had fought so long. But the thing that's exciting about it, and the challenge to us, is that we also have been organizing Workers' Action Center and Good Jobs for All, the EI committee, pushing hard and labor on the federal government
to get the types of programs we need. And we've made changes. And when they've been telling us for so long in our memberships that no money for healthcare, no money for education, no money for social service, no money for anything, and tightening and tightening and tightening the belt around us, we're seeing now there are billions, if not trillions of dollars that are there. And I think that message we've got to get out to our membership, that this is the moment where we push and push hard, and the things that we've gained already, don't let them roll them back, and the things that we still need, push forward for them, because this is a moment, I think, that the whole Green New Deal, there's no money for it? I don't think so. Sure, there's money for it because we're seeing it. And so I think really to have that message out there to our membership that as tough as things are, and they are tough, we see the mutual aid societies, we see people organizing the rent strikes, all of those things in the workplace. We have a capacity to make the most of this horrible, horrible, horrible situation for our members and actually try and put a vision of the type of society we want and push hard. So I think that message has to get through to our members too, that there is going to be an end to this, and we want a different world at the end of it, which will serve working people's needs. I'll leave it at that.
Thanks, Carla. I have Darnell George from SEIU.
Hi, thanks, John. My name is Darnell George, RPN, currently working with SEIU Healthcare. Greetings to all. So having the opportunity to connect with the members as a SEIU internal organizer during COVID-19 pandemic is very disturbing. In the past 2 to 3 weeks, I've been supporting SEIU members through the Member Engagement Call Center COVID-19 Member Assistance Line. We are supporting members through mental health, applying for government emergency benefits, WSIB, labor relations, and nursing professional practice. What I'm hearing from the members as I connect with the members are fear, quitting their jobs, their finances, job security by losing their jobs, unsafe workplace by not having the proper personal protective equipment, for example, like the N95 mask. I'm hearing they're afraid of that their family members will get infected with COVID. These are all the things I'm hearing. It's very frightening. In the last week, the government has allowed long-term care to bring volunteers, removing the training requirements for workers with no vulnerable sector screening. They are going into these homes to take care of vulnerable citizens. The nursing professional standard is at risk. Also, all healthcare workers, frontline workers, resident patient clients, and family members are also at risk. As a union, we are coming together to be a 21st century union, SEIU Healthcare Local 1. We are planning and launching a public campaign. We are engaging not only our members, but we are also engaging the public. And you can connect on the website to www.seiuhealthcare.ca/action. Taken actions, I'll put that in the message. So what we are planning on doing is to allow the government to provide PPE, personal protective equipment, which include N95 masks to all staff who need it, who are providing care for positive COVID patients. We are also requiring LTC corporations to sign testament taking responsibility for the safety of staff and residents. We also want to ensure that all hire are trained. We also want to raise the level of transparency. We also want them to share updates on personal care plans with residents' family. We are fighting for our members, and we are asking you to join us by sharing a link with your organization or with your network. www.seiuhealthcare.ca/takeaction. I repeat, www.seiuhealthcare.ca/takeactions. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your dedication. Be safe, stay safe. Solidarity to everyone. Thank you. Have a blessed night.
Thank you, sister.
Yes.
And thank you for all the incredible work your members are doing, and especially in the long-term care homes where this has been, so hard-hitting on their patients and also staff. I don't see any more speakers, so we're going to move to the vote, and Mohammed will put up the poll, which is those who are in favor or support the motion, which is the executive board statement. So you can vote now, please. After that, we're going to have the CLC report, and I'll start by opening it up for Josh, and then committee reports if there are any committee reports, and then we'll go to union reports, where we'd love to hear what's happening with your members and your sectors. Are we about finished the vote?
Yeah, I think 60% of the people have voted so far, and it's a 95% vote in favor.
Okay. Josh, are you ready to make your report? Okay, that motion is carried. Josh, you ready to make your report? Oh, I'm sorry. We need to do a correspondence. I've skipped that. So Jeff, you have two motions to read out on correspondence. Abdi has given us his apologies. He's not able to be here tonight. So can you unmute Jeff, and Jeff, you can read those motions.
The dogs decided to join us. Number one, we have a request from Council of Canadians for a donation. The Executive Board recommends a donation of $200.
That's our annual support for the Council of Canadians. So if we can put up the vote, all those in favor or against vote now. Has that gone up? Yep.
And while the vote's going on, I guess I'll just move on.
Yep.
While the dog's quieted down. The second piece of correspondence is a request from the Social Planning Council to renew our membership. The Executive Board recommends we renew our membership for $150. That's based on the size of our organization.
And that's our annual membership that we've been part of social planning for many, many years. So we'll take the vote. All in favor or against, that vote will go up.
And that would be all the correspondence.
Great, thank you.
Back to you, JC.
Okay. I'm not seeing Josh on the line. Are there, if you would like to do a union report, we'd like you to put your hand up, and I see Aleem Tarani is back on this line from the ATU. It'd be great, Aleem, if you could talk about what's going on with your members, and anybody else, please put up your hand to ask to speak. Can we unmute Aleem? Can we unmute? There we are. Aleem, go ahead. You may have to be unmuting yourself too, Aleem. Is there any other union that wants to make a report while waiting? Michelle Johnston?
Yeah, okay, I can give a bit of a report. So I already spoke about how we're dealing with some of the legal aid members on our legal side, but on the energy side, as we do represent, most of our membership is on the energy sector side. Most of you know that sector has been deemed essential. So at this point in time, we don't have any of our folks that are facing layoffs, but we are worried about a couple of our locals because some of them rely on the bigger locals to generate the work for them. And as some of that for example, Bruce Power is in a refurbishment mode. They probably will be backing off of some of that work because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And so we're expecting that will have a downstream impact on the suppliers that where we represent members at those companies. The other thing is we're hearing that our critical staff at the nuclear control rooms are likely at some point not going to be allowed to go home. So we're kind of working on some kind of a compensation package for them as they have to stay on site to manage the system. So that would probably be the folks at Ontario Power Generation, Bruce Power, Hydro One, and the IESO. So that's about it from our end. Thanks.
No. Okay, next is Kim Mantaluk, followed by Lily, and then Sean. Kim?
Hi, thanks, John. I just wanted to draw attention to some stuff that's going on in childcare right now. We have a lot of members that are facing layoff, just like many members of all different sectors. But we did want to talk about the comment that Doug Ford made about price gouging, and that some programs are still having to charge parent fees, even though their children are not attending. And that's based on the way childcare is funded in Ontario. And most of our programs rely heavily on parent fees. And if they stop paying those or charging those parent fees, they are not able to make their rent. They're pulling money out of their GICs, their reserves. This could end up with these childcare programs closing their doors forever. They will not be able to come back from this. So we've really been putting it out there that we need some stabilization funding from the province and the federal government to ensure that they don't have to charge parent fees. These programs don't want to be charging parents, but they also realize that they have to try to keep those doors open. And many of our unionized workers have collective agreements in place that do say they will be on payroll for a certain amount of time before laying off, and these programs are not able to make their next payroll without these parent fees. So I just wanted to draw attention to that and, just inform people that, these childcare centers, these programs are not price gouging. They're not trying, typically, I mean, maybe some for-profits are, but, the not-profit programs, they are not trying to price gouge and take money from parents. They're doing it because they want to make sure that the sector is sustainable after the economy rebounds.
Great, thank you. Lily, followed by Sean Blake.
Lily Chang, QP Local 79. So City of Toronto, Bridgepoint Hospital, Toronto Community Housing. So I will concentrate my comments on the City of Toronto, which is my direct employer. So having finished a recent round of bargaining, I think a lot of our members are surprised to discover that they are considered essential during the emergency with the City of Toronto. And so they knew that in bargaining that, they couldn't go out, or so they could go out on strike or they could be locked out. The only people who were true essential workers are people who are working on long-term care. But in this current situation, many of our members are considered essential at this point in time. And that is, as I've tried to explain to them, because they are needed by the city right now to maintain the safety and security of the residents, as well as the infrastructure for the city. So we have members who are working right now in 311, of course, answering many calls from residents. We've got members in Toronto Employment and Social Services who are working and realizing that there are people in the city far less fortunate than themselves, of course. So even though they are going to work and very frightened to be working beside people, that they are at the same time going in to do that very important work. We have members who are working, coming back to work as building inspectors and other building staff because the province has deemed construction to be essential. Bylaw officers coming back because people won't pay attention and listen and stay home instead they're going to the parks. We have shelters who are working, of course, 24/7. The city has opened up 7 temporary shelters to try to spread out residents and make sure they have the physical distancing. Some of our members who are not working in their home divisions are being redeployed over to shelters, which is very scary for them because they've never worked in that setting before. We have current members in long-term care who have tested positive for COVID, and residents who've passed away there, as well as we have, I think it happened in public health as well, where for all that public health is, they weren't doing the proper distancing in the workplace. And so they had one person test positive and then had to send home a bunch of public health nurses and inspectors from 277 Victoria. So for all the people who are currently working and for those who are being asked to return to work, at this point in time, we are making sure that that they are returning to work safely, so that the workspace, that they have their distancing, and if it's not possible, that they're issued the proper PPE. So the only group I think that I think I'm most concerned about, other than the shelters people, is probably those members working in the children's services, the four childcare centers that have opened up to take in the children from essential and I guess hospital emergency workers across the city. They were staffed on a voluntary basis. And to be honest, I don't really know how much uptake there has been, but it's a very important service to be sure, and something that is required if we need our emergency essential workers to continue working during this time. But it is a very scary time for those members because some people don't express any symptoms, and doing that work, it's not possible to take care of children from 6 feet away or to wear all the PPE that you normally would if you're working close to people. So that's pretty much it from my local.
Great. Thanks, Lily. Sean, followed by Jorge, Chris, Nadon, and then Alim will come after Chris. So Sean, followed by Jorge.
Good evening, everyone. Sean Blake, Carpenters, Local 27. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So to date, we, the Carpenters Union, have been actively pursuing making sure that all of our general contractors and our subcontractors are supplying the essential ingredients for our job sites to continue to work. That would be your hand sanitizers, your running water, hot water at that as well too. And we have a questionnaire that we've had to circulate amongst our stewards that are on site and some of our members to get feedback, so that if we do find sites that are running the risk of becoming contaminated, or we then send that information on to the ministry, and they will then heed that and then visit those sites and investigate. Our EST, Tony Annuzzi, back on March the 23rd, had sent a letter to the Premier's office basically asking for a 2-week shutdown. And if John, if you wanted me to read the letter, I have it right here.
No.
Okay.
We got a lot of other people speaking from different sectors as well.
So we're doing our very best to make sure that our members are safe. And we have also, they have been told that if they do not feel safe at work as far as COVID is concerned, that they have the right to walk away from work for 2 weeks and not risk be terminated upon return. However, we cannot tell our members, obviously, to walk off the job. We've been deemed, as Lily had said, an essential service, and so we're working with the government on all 3 levels to make sure we navigate these troubling times.
Thanks very much. Jorge, and for those who don't know, in construction, there's no seniority. So when Sean says people, leave and not sure about coming back, there is no seniority for anybody. So people are always conscious of what they do and how those relations continue. Jorge, followed by Chris Nadon, and then Alim. Jorge Villataro.
Hi, everybody. So my name's Jorge. I'm a staff organizer of SEIU Local 2. Mostly work on the Justice for Janitors campaign. So this afternoon we launched our Invisible to Essential campaign. And I'll just read off the petition real quick, and I'll share the link in the messaging when I'm done here. So suddenly many service workers who are often underappreciated and underpaid have been thrust into the spotlight. During this crisis, it's become more clear than ever that low-paid janitors do essential work and need a permanent wage enhancement. Some industries have stepped up and are recognizing the value of their workers. For example, there's been an increase in pay for some grocery store workers, and there's talk of the hazard pay for healthcare workers. Janitors are still being paid close to minimum wage and shouldn't be left behind. So I'm going to ask anyone who's available to sign the petition we have on our website for this campaign called From Invisible to Essential. Basically, we're asking cleaning contractors, property management, and building owners to all come together to make sure cleaners are respected, especially be so important. So thank you, everybody.
Great, thanks, Jorge. And we will, we'll be putting out a special e-blast tomorrow. This is news to Skyler. She hasn't heard this yet, but with some of these links to provide them and inviting you to also let us know about your own campaigns. Chris Nadon, followed by Eileen.
Well, thanks, John. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yep.
So Chris Nadon, I'm the treasurer with Local 58 IATSE. So I'd like to just, I think on behalf of all our membership and everyone that works in the entertainment business, you probably all know that the pretty much North American wide, actually worldwide, the entertainment business has come to a grinding halt. Our entire membership right now is out of work. All our theaters, all our venues, pretty much North American wide are closed. So I think I speak for everyone in the membership is if now is a wake-up call to everyone to support our healthcare workers and support everyone, because we can't get back to work until this is over. So we would just like to thank all the healthcare workers out there that are doing their best and kicking ass in this time. And we love you all, and we hope this is over soon.
Thanks, Chris. Alim, followed by Kim Nasalo. We're trying to get you unmuted, Alim. Okay,
Am I
go
good?
ahead. Yep.
Hi, everybody. So just a quick update. Right now, I guess everyone's seeing what's on the news. We are rear door loading with all of our revenue vehicles. We've also put something out as a union stating that our operators will only be allowing 10 to 15, 10 on the 40-foot bus vehicles and 15 on the 60-foot vehicles. We are trying to increase the service so that there are more buses on the road so we can encourage social distancing. I know that the city has commandeered a lot of our safety equipment for the healthcare workers and for the firefighters. We are trying to be proactive. There is also, the commission hasn't, the TTC hasn't come to us and talked to us about layoffs, but we're hearing from our other ATU locals that this could be a harsh reality. We are sort of trying to work with the employer and maybe go outside of our regular CBA and maybe move employees around to satellite locations rather than the shops where we have 200 to 300 people working in one building, so that they can help sanitize the vehicles, clean the vehicles, pre-service them, so that we can continue providing the service for the people that need us. I don't think there's anything other than that I really need to report on, but we are trying our best to help move the city. We know that we are an essential service. We are working diligently behind the scenes to try and make sure that we keep doing what we need to do. And I guess that's about it. Stay safe, keep your heads up, everybody.
Thanks, Alim. Kim Nasalo, followed by Michael Platt.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Kim Nasello, Local 5111. I'm the president. As I said before, I work for the LCBO. So with the LCBO, we do not have plexiglass up as of yet. It is in the process of being rolled out, as well as a mask that is coming out, a protective mask that is being rolled out. It should be rolled out by the end of this week, I believe. They are producing 1,000 a day for us and being rolled out. I'm not sure who the manufacturer is, but it's being happening. As far as hand sanitizers, I don't know if anybody knows of this, but Mill Street and a bunch of craft breweries are doing it, are making sanitizers, as well as Spirit of York. in the distillery district are making hand sanitizers, and they are making it for frontline workers to use that as well. So if you need hand sanitizers, they will give it out. I believe they will give them out for free of charge for frontline workers, or you can make a donation. We are experiencing issues with people coming into the stores. As far as, people are bored, so they just think they'll come in a clan and walk around the store and just, thinking that it's a, shopping mall. So, we are trying to promote that only one person that comes into the store to do their shopping and pay by either credit or debit and not use cash, because you can still use cash at our store, but only use that. We do have a little issue with people that are being very impatient and try to scare our members by trying to promote coughing on them or doing other things to scare them to the fact that they are so scared to go into work because of what a customer is going to do to them. Now, I'm not saying that this is happening with every customer that comes in. I'm going to say to you that 95% of the customers are very patient and very good and understand what is happening in our society right now. But there are a few, and that really taints the way that is happening. As far as pay is concerned as well, we have been asked for hazard pay, and hazard pay has not been granted by the government. It has been declined with us. We are an essential service. We have been deemed an essential service. I understand that process, because that process is if we do close down, and then all that's going to happen is that our healthcare service is going to rise because of detoxation. And that will happen within our system, right? So, but I'm just saying, if everybody could be a little more social responsible as coming in with maybe only one person at a time, that would be great.
Thank you, Kim. Michael Platt, followed by Melissa Sobers.
Thank you, John. So this is Michael Platt, OSSTF, Toronto, District 12, TTBU. And so after the conclusion of the March break, teachers in Toronto did engage in the first phase of what we're calling our emergency distance or remote learning. And so that included things such as connecting in with parents and students to find out what capacities they had with regards to internet, Wi-Fi at home, availability of computers, tablets, laptops, and what have you. And also with the board assessing and figuring out what the capacities of its teachers were in this regard as well. And then also having teachers connect with students just sort of to check in and be an interested, caring adult in their life, and just let them know that they're out there, and that this is, it's an unprecedented situation, but that a distance learning is hopefully going to continue. The ministry did put up a portal on their website with some information. It was rather limited to science, math, English, and what have you. And now we're getting ready for the second phase of the emergency remote learning, which will begin on the 6th of April, this coming Monday, where teachers will be communicating and connecting with students at home via different platforms. There will be several platforms approved by the TDSB, and teachers will be able to pick a platform and actually start delivering a curriculum subject-specific curriculum to their high school students. And the ministry has put out some guidelines with to how many hours of work that should include per week. And there's a lot of unknowns right now, but people are working to get this emergency remote learning up and running. There's a lot of hiccups, as you might imagine. One of them is, for instance, and I'm really glad that the statement today did talk about childcare for essential service workers, because in some of my members' homes, one of the spouses or partners is still going to work, and the teacher that is at home now has to, in addition to delivering a curriculum to students, is also might have 1, 2, or 3 or more young children to take care of at home, and that presents all sorts of complications. Again, this is something we've never done before, and we're learning as we move on. So that's, I think, where we're at there on sort of the secondary teachers in Toronto.
Thanks, Mike. Melissa Sobers, followed by Joe Papadakis.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. Good evening, everybody. So my name is Melissa Sobers. I'm from Unite Here Local 75, hospitality and hospitality, food service, casino workers. That's who we represent. You probably know that hospitality has taken a huge hit. Nobody's flying, nobody's going to baseball games. So about 90% of our members have been laid off, and frankly, hospitality workers across the board, not just our members, are feeling this really hard. So right now we're trying to build a relationship with the city and figure out how our hospitality workers can help support the overflow of patients that are coming into our hotels now that some of them are being commandeered for that purpose, and to help with shelters for refugee folks who are being affected at this time. So we're trying to figure out or build relationships with healthcare experts and folks who are specializing in occupational health and safety, because we really need to figure out what the protocol is going to be, how our folks are going to be trained, hospitality workers are going to be trained for this, and how an oversight and accountability is going to take place. So if anybody out there have some advice about who I could get in touch with to think about experts in that field, please, maybe through John, you can get in touch with me and we can have a discussion. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, Melissa. Joe Papadakis, followed by Andrea Babington.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Greetings, everyone from Local 30, sheet metal workers from roofers. I guess basically our members have been deemed essential, just like other construction workers, facing many of the same challenges. Social distancing is one of the ongoing challenges in construction. We have an opportunity to raise the standard of our conditions as far as the washrooms go. As you know, John, it's been like 100 years of the same, stuff we've been dealing with. So we're lobbying the government to, along with the rest of the building trades, to raise the standard. Like the brother said earlier about running water and having hot water. So this is something positive maybe to come out of this. I'd like to give a shout out to the MOL inspectors. The response time has been really good, following up on calls. And I just want to say solidarity to everyone. I'd like to give a personal shout out to the postal workers, and we're all in this together, so stay strong. Anything we can do to help out, just ask. Thanks.
Thanks, Joe. And I have the last speaker is Andrea Babington. Andrea.
Okay.
Okay.
So just to tap into what my sister Melissa is talking about, with all these members that's laid off, we still have a small group that's still going to work. And I think one of the biggest problems we have right now is the fear. The handful of them that left behind, it's either the fear of working and contracting anything that you're taking home, or for people that are home right now, wagering between if they're getting a few hours on childcare. That's a big issue for them. We are lobbying, we're pushing the government. We put letters out there to the Premier, to the Prime Minister, Minister of Finance. And one of the reasons why we're doing that, we know for sure, and this is part of what was listed in the statement, about increasing the EI premium from 55% up to, I mean, we went as far as 80%, which it's about that, you know, it's not unrealistic, but it's a reality that right now people are wagering, is it okay to face hotels that might house people that are, the people that are with the virus right now, do they go back to work and face that, or do they face 55%? So there are some people that are wagering if they have to do the other, or the employer that would allow them to stay inside the hotel if they have to use those places as quarantine, and then they don't have to go home to their family with it. So they're looking at different risk factor if that's the way that they can pay the bill. So we are going to continue to push at our level. I think the most important thing right now, as we see whether there's a little bit of work, or for people that want to figure out as the business come back up and they have to go out and do that work. Safety is really, really a top priority right now for someone, making sure, pushing the government to make sure that safety, they're not just walking in, but they're getting proper training to take on the job and to make sure that they're safe, even going back into their own household.
Okay, thanks, Andrea. So a couple of things before we start winding up, and we're going to actually remind ourselves of the importance of culture at the end of this. But two things. One is the 28th. We will not be doing the normal gatherings we do on that day. We are still working out whether we do one or two ceremonies, because we do want to, you know, honor the reality of York Region being a very you know, different kind of dynamics as compared to the city of Toronto. So we are planning on doing two online day of mourning ceremonies, and we don't know the format of that yet. Our executive board and staff will be working on that. The other thing is that the Labor Community Services has, you know, many of the things that they teach in the LCAT courses are what people are desperately wanting to find out now. So Najib and Fadum Mohammed and her team will be putting together an outreach to everybody who's gone through the LCAT courses and offering a special, you know, evening of updating the kinds of things that are available for people if they or their colleagues or their families are going through crisis. You know, what are the things that they can access to assist people through these really tough times. Our meeting in May is going back to the regular date, the first Thursday of the month, because we had originally put it out because of the CLC convention. As people know, the CLC convention has been canceled and postponed until whenever, we're not sure. I see Pam has raised her hand. I'm going to recognize her in a minute. But before I do that, I just want to say that Brother Nadon from IATSE talked about how all of the, you know, film and entertainment and theater is shut down. You'll notice in our statement, we said we want to maintain funding for those small independent, you know, theaters and cultural venues, because they don't have a lot of money the way that some of the film studios do. And we want to make sure that those places, which are part of, you know, all the cultures that we have in the GTA, are sustained and can be there in the future for all of us. So Pam, I'm going to recognize you as the last speaker. Pam Biddlestone.
Well, thanks, John. I was just writing you a note, and I'm sorry to trouble the other people with this, but I just was writing you a note, and I'll continue to do that. I just wanted to know what maybe the alternative date or alternative method forum will be for the day of mourning for your region. Yeah.
It's going to be the same date, April 28th.
Oh, okay, it is. Okay.
It will be April 28th, and we're just not sure if traditionally the one in York Region has started at 11 o'clock and the one in Toronto at noon. And we may still do that. We may have some forum. I don't know if it'll be a Zoom or some kind of broadcasting. We may have a, you know, video. We've got this video conferenced on our YouTube channel. We may have a panel rather than individual speakers, but we'll work out a similar format so we hear messages from, people from different sectors that are concerned about what we are, and obviously we'll be doing, moment of silence for people who have already been struck by this terrible pandemic that's in front of us. So we'll get back to you.
Thank you, John. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So I think I want to end this by saying thank you to everybody who's come on the line. We've had 75 participants, and I know sometimes it's easier than driving to the IVW hall, but we want to also thank Local 353 for their continuing support now that we've left 15 Gervais for our meetings in their hall. They also support us on a number of things. Our movement, when it's gone through these really tough times, has shown incredible resilience. We note in some of the material out there that it was the Great Depression and the massive movement of the unemployed and what was called the On to Ottawa trek that forced the government of the day to bring about employment insurance. It was the mass organizing in the 30s and the early 40s that forced the Ontario Labor Relations and Canada Labor Relations, to be put in place as laws, so workers had right to unions. And sadly, the Second World War also taught some people some lessons about sacrifice. And when people came back as veterans saying, why did we sacrifice on those people, the wealthiest in society, just made a lot of money and profits? We want universal public services, and National Health Service came in Britain in 1947 because of that. And of course, it took us a bunch of years to get that. So we know if we figure this out and we're there for each other and we support each other, and in every way we start trying to think about how do people organize to have a fair society in the future, that's the other conversation. Right now, we want to make sure we're all safe. We want to make sure people, have the capacity to survive and pay their rent and put food on the table. But when we come out of this, we've seen that governments can have the capacity to spend billions and billions and billions of dollars. And, the same people who were slashing back on healthcare and slashing back on public health are now holding daily conferences saying, thank you very much for those workers. Well, we've got to make sure that our movement is strong enough to demand a fair outcome at the end of this. And somebody just put up universal pharmacare now. Absolutely, that's going to be one of the things that we'll be looking for. We will be putting out social media, and please, share this, including that latest graphic that we've got about honoring workers who keep things going on and keep us all healthy through this thing. And so we are going to end this by putting on our anthem, and you're going to hear it, Solidarity Forever, played by Pete Seeger, who is, of course, one of Labor's greatest singers. Is that almost starting? Okay, I'm not hearing it yet. It's playing, but we don't have the sound. Okay, it's on Susan's, not playing on that.
You may have to unmute yourself, Susan.
Susan, you got to unmute yourself. Oh. Well, you can hear it in the background from my sound. So thanks everyone, and keep safe and let's stay strong. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you later. The staff will stay on the meeting to tell me how many mistakes I made, but that's part of the job. Thanks for joining us tonight. Take care.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Good night. Okay, we're going to ask people to leave who aren't on the staff of the Labor Council, Bowen and Tim. Okay. Okay, so
We're still live on YouTube.
we're still live on YouTube. So Skylar, can you take us off YouTube? Many famous stories about things that have been said when they thought that the recording was off.